Welcome to today's community conversation. My name is Sean Hurley, and I'll be your community host. We are joined by Saul and Jacob, and we're talking Dynamo as normal. Anyway, all right, let's get into the next slide, please. Community conversations provide opportunities for engineers, designers, artists, and makers to meet in a safe, live, virtual setting to share expertise, to get to know leaders in their field, and grow your community network. The sessions are always supported by Autodesk community managers to help guide the conversations, feed important insights back to the community, to Autodesk, and support participants in getting connected to the expertise you need. All right, fun stuff, rules. The line's muted to reduce background noise, like errant squeaky chairs. But we invite you to turn on your cameras, kind of like we're in the same room kind of environment, if you feel comfortable with that. If you have a question, either raise your hand using the little Zoom reactions, or we'll call on you to unmute, or type it in chat. We'll be monitoring the chat as well. The sessions are always recorded, and a link will be emailed to everybody, and they'll be on YouTube, so you can share those. And there's those handy little reactions at the bottom, the little thumb. You can give that, and we'll call on you if you have a question that's timely. Now for the legal stuff. This basically says that anything that we talk about, that you make any purchasing decisions of the product, but we are talking about Dynamo here, but still, if you make any decisions about the product, they're based on the way the product is today. Any forward-looking statements aren't guaranteed. We only guarantee what is in the product today. So if Saul talks about putting rainbow tails on Dynamo next month, we can't hold him to that. It would be really cool, but that's not probably going to happen. So anyway, let's
not currently slated, Sean.
Yeah. So again, I'm Sean Hurley. I'm the Autodesk Community Engagement Manager. I'm a geeky technologist based in beautiful Bend, Oregon. The smoke is finally cleared out, so I'm excited.
And I'm Jacob Small, designated sports specialist focusing on generative design and BIM, based out of Boston, Mass. You may know me from the Dynamo BIM forums, community conversations, and elsewhere in the larger Dynamo community.
Hello, everyone. My name is Saul. I am the product manager for Dynamo, so I'm the person you can come talk to about all things you wish to see in Dynamo, and maybe some complaints you might have about the state of play today that we can look to improve in the future too. I describe myself as a curious human being, and I'm also based here in Boston, but I'm from New Zealand originally. So if I say anything in slang that you don't understand, please feel free to jump out and ask me to clarify. Cool, so thank you for joining today, welcome. Given that AU is very close, just around the corner, we're talking today a little bit more informally than usual, around AU sessions of note, specifically targeting Dynamo and some GD sessions. This is number 7 in our Dynamo Office Hours, 17, sorry, in our Dynamo Office Hours series, which is posted into a YouTube playlist, which is awesome. Go check that out if you haven't seen some of them. There's some really good stuff in there, mostly Jacob doing really cool things, and blow up balloon animals and so on are part of it. So today, it's slightly different than usual. We're not going to have a live demo of Dynamo. We're more going to have just a conversation. So please do feel free to talk to us, just to ask questions, to have some sort of generic Dynamo conversation. You can ask normal Dynamo questions, you can ask some specific things about AU. And what we're going to do is really just walk through a few sessions that are scheduled for AU on the Dynamo side of things and have a bit of a Q&A at the end. So to kick it off, what we're going to do is we're going to show you a series of different slides that are based around what you see on screen right now. So in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see a series of icons referring to the products that Dynamo sort of plays with, or the host integrations, we call them, that you might be familiar with. So if you're in Revit, you see a big R, then great. This is a session that's probably going to be enjoyable for you. Ditto for F-Former and every other host integration we have. But I would say that all of the Dynamo sessions inherently are about logic at the end of the day. So I would encourage you to go and watch as many as you feel like you want to, because you're going to learn something irrespective of the flavor that comes with. So if you're somebody who only uses Revit, I would encourage you to actually go and try Civil 3D or Format or Alias and check out how different people in a slightly different domain start to think about building logic, which is really cool. So to kick it off, there's a couple of product briefings. Dynamo does not have a product briefing. I think we've been deemed that we're we're popular enough that we don't need one, and there's enough stuff talking about Dynamo, which is kind of cool. It means I don't have to give one, which is both sad and happy, given that AU is a very busy time frame. But the product briefings we have on screen right now are two that are within the group that I work within as well, which is Format, which has a very awesome Dynamo integration, and also Generative Design and Revit, which obviously uses Dynamo as a backing technology to build the logic and work through that. So if you're interested to see where these two products are moving into the future, things around like roadmaps and prioritization, you can go and check out these two sessions as well. They're pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, there was a note from Jason that the sessions said they were full really quick after the event list came out. You may want to go back and double check. Sometimes spots do open up periodically, but the good news about AU, where it is all digital this year, everything's going to be recorded. So don't worry, if you missed it, you're going to be able to go back and catch that recording. It just means you won't be able to sort of engage in sort of any of the Q&A that may happen at the end of some of the sessions.
Yeah, and if you jump onto the next slide, I'll talk directly about that a little bit. So we have some Dynamo meetups. Unfortunately, both of them filled up inherently, or just very, very, very quickly, which is both awesome and a little sad for people who didn't manage to make it into these sessions. So we were capped at 100 people per session. And so we have two filled up. We're actively trying to make a third right now. So, trying to prey on that one a little bit, hoping that that goes through. We're working with the AU organization to see if that comes through. If it does, there'll be a third meetup, which will follow the same vein as these other ones. And essentially, in the past, we used to run a Dynamo event, usually a party, which was really cool, a really nice way for people to come together, to meet other people in the Dynamo world, and to sort of have a lighthearted event where you sometimes talked a little bit about some technical stuff and some geeky stuff, but mostly it was just about having fun and meeting other people who thought about the world in the same way that you do. So these Dynamo sessions are sort of the online version of that, which is it's going to be some trivia, and we're going to have some open questions, some forum Q&As, and just basically pose a conversation like we are today to the broader Dynamo community. Like Jacob said, do check back. Sometimes these do become available, and I will be blasting out over Twitter and LinkedIn and through the Dynamo forum if the third one does open up as well. I'll have to do that quickly because it's probably going to fill up fast, but just a heads up.
Cool. All right, and now we're getting into some of the more user-driven content. This first session that I wanted to highlight is on optimizing road design with Dynamo for Civil 3D and generative design. So if everybody is aware of generative design, we most likely know it through generative design for Revit, the add-in inside of Revit that allows you to sort of leverage your Dynamo graph through generative design to sort of explore your design space and find more optimized solutions than you might find otherwise. Paolo Serra has been sort of driving the effort in many ways to sort of integrate that sort of core processy into the Civil 3D sort of applications. And in this particular session, he's going to go over with Mcgregor how to actually leverage generative design on the Dynamo for Civil 3D side to be able to find sort of optimized roadway design. So I'm really, really looking forward to this. These guys are both amazing presenters. I go and I watch the recording anytime I don't get to pop in and see it live. This year, I didn't actually, I won't actually be able to go to that one. I've got a conflict, unfortunately, but really looking forward to catching that recording after the fact.
Cool. So the next one we're going to highlight is called Computational Kickoffs 101. Looks like I made a typo. Apologies on there. It's not 1010. This is by Kayleigh Houde, which is going to be really awesome as a way to start framing how to approach a computational problem. So when you start to think about automating your workflows, you're going to want to attack that kind of problem space in a slightly different way than you have previously in, say, a design problem. So Kayleigh's going to go through a bunch of different steps on how to best approach planning a visual programming sort of automation workflow, which is super cool. So I'd encourage everybody to check this one out for sure.
Next up is improving your workflows using the Dynamo Player capabilities. This is a session that's actually built around Dynamo Player for Alias. And we talk a lot about Dynamo in the context of Revit, a lot about it in the context of Civil 3D, a little bit in the context of Format, but it's out there for Alias as well. And we've seen a lot of customers do some really, really crazy, awesome stuff with that Alias integration, and the inclusion of Dynamo Player into that environment is really going to allow a lot of people to take stuff even another step forward. Michael and Florian always do some amazing stuff whenever I get to work with them. So I'm really excited to see what they have coming out on this end as well.
Yeah, and just to jump on there, if you're interested in geometry inside of Dynamo, the Alias integration is basically only geometry based because Alias is dealing with predominantly geometry. It's not so much Revit based with data. So you can get to see some really interesting different approaches on how to start playing with geometry if you start to take classes like this.
Yeah, great point, Sol.
Awesome. So another Civil 3D session with the C in the upper right. So this is Dynamo for Civil 3D. So automating checks of open format road design made easy. So similar to any other project, Dynamo is simply going to be used here to automate some of the tedium outside of projects inside of Civil 3D. We have an awesome 4 set of speakers, and we're talking about how to sort of develop Dynamo scripts inside of the Civil 3D landscape that start to deal with pulling data in from places such as land XML files, the ability to understand how to leverage Dynamo to be a much more efficient and optimized inside of your workflows within Civil 3D. So if you work in the civil space, or again, if you don't, and you're curious about how people think in that realm, we would also encourage you to come check this out. Another case in point is you'll notice we're going through these pretty quickly because we have about 20 of them. And this is more of just a bite-sized chunk and like a collation of all of the classes that we would probably go and see if we had all of the time available in the world to see these. If you want to look a little bit deeper into these, please do sign up for the sessions and engage inside of the AU format.
Awesome. Thanks, Sol. Next up, this is actually a panel discussion that I'm taking part in as well. 2 weeks to 4 hours, how Populous built efficiency with generative design. So this class actually originally started way back when Populous, one of the accounts I worked with, reached out to me to say, hey, we need to figure out how we can design equine event locations much faster than we currently do. Their process at the time took about 2 weeks to go from sort of initial concept to something that they can sort of put in front of the customer. We partnered together and sort of helped them build up basically a tool set that allows them to explore the space and provide functioning solutions to customers in basically 2 hours. Sorry, 4 hours now. I get those two numbers backwards sometimes. So massive time savings there, but even more importantly, it's actually transforming the way that they address the business unit overall. So really excited to get to present this to everybody at AU.
Cool. And then in a slightly different realm, using Dynamo in different kind of ways is a really cool approach. And this particular class here, called A Digital Revolution, Resilient Housing, Build Change at Autodesk, leverages Dynamo to work in a more sort of like non-profit resiliency type focused approach, specifically here in Colombia, looking how to impact lives positively across the space, which is really cool. So Build Change has worked for 17 years with Autodesk's technology, and here they use Dynamo to start automating some of the processes within which they can help a whole bunch of other people who really desperately do need some of this help. So this is about leveraging digital tools in a slightly different kind of approach, which is really nice. And in that kind of vein, I would encourage you again to go and check it out.
Sorry, we removed that person.
Yep, all set. Thanks. All right. Next up, we've got strategy of BIM growth at KPF. KPF's another account that I work with. They do some really amazing buildings, lots of tall, super tall buildings as well. And Veronica, Alex, and Martin wanted to sort of present their strategy for BIM growth at KPF in terms of not just what it means in terms of Revit, but also how they're leveraging Dynamo and other sort of external tool sets at a high level to really allow the process to be defined different from what you see with traditional content.
Awesome. So moving on, we have Toda showing Hidden Superpowers of Dynamo Part 2. This is a session he presented, I believe, last year at AU. And this is around specifically some things to do with Package Manager and Package Manager's Assemble. So this is talking about how to really leverage all of the cool things that have come down through the Dynamo pipeline since last year. Some of the stuff that we've been working on, we're very excited to get out into the hands of everybody here and everybody beyond this call as well. And so this is specifically targeting some pretty cool things in the AI machine learning space, looking at the core changes that have traversed the Dynamo landscape in the past year or so, learning some sort of key things around sort of digital twins and web APIs and how to leverage and lean into the broader sort of landscape of Autodesk and all of the technologies that we bring to the table.
Next up, we've got the Chicago Dynamo user group meetup, Computation Coast to Coast. if you're not familiar with the Chinamo user group, they have basically one of the leading Dynamo user group out there. They do some amazing content, and they've brought together Dana De Filippi from Smith Group, Ihsan Aran-Nejad from Revit fame, as well as Rhino Inside, all together, John Pearson as well, who I see is in the chat, as well as Paul Aubin, to basically bring some content together, lay out a problem, and the team is going to basically brainstorm a solution live. So we're going to get to see some absolute Dynamo powerhouses working out some problem solving technique live, and really, really excited to get to see what comes from this session.
Yeah, I'll jump on that one and say these kind of events are really interesting because you get to see how people think live. And typically when you see things posted onto the forums or shared out on LinkedIn or various other places, they're kind of like the final product. You don't really get to see how people think, how people engage with problem solving. So this notion of problem solving and how to navigate a space where you might not know the answer is a really interesting way to start to learn how to better your own problem solving. When you start to think about the other ways that people from a different background or a different discipline or a different part of the world might tackle that problem.
Cool.
So Autodesk also has what we call technology centers. And so the technology centers are at all of our major offices around the world. And we have a bunch of different people come and do like a secondment or a little sabbatical inside of Autodesk. And they get to work with all of the people inside of Autodesk. They get access to our Slack channels and our technology, as well as a bunch of really fun tools like CNC routers and 3D printers and all of the good stuff. And as part of that, the technology centers do this sort of spotlight series. So in this particular spotlight series, this is around Daisy AI. And Daisy AI is a company based out of the UK who are looking to automate the placement of floors, also wooden floors within residential space. And they're leaning into some Dynamo to do that as well. So pretty interesting stuff. I'd encourage you to go and check this one out because they're going to show you what a company is doing at the cutting edge of what they're doing within the AI space, leaning into Dynamo and Autodesk tech.
And next up, we've got generative design using Dynamo for multifamily residential. In this session, Harish and Ramya will be coming together to basically illustrate a method of leveraging Dynamo to sort of automate and optimize your typical multifamily residential design. I did get a sneak peek of the graph that they're building up. It's really, really impressive. I think we're going to see some great stuff come out of that session because they're leveraging the content in basically a rather inventive way. So really, really looking forward to watching the recording here, as well as playing around with the data set that they're going to be presenting as well.
Cool. So Sweco, being one of the larger companies based out of Europe, have been using Dynamo for a long time. And in this talk, Jostein is going to talk about how to scale the adoption of Dynamo. So if you're working in a large firm and you're running into some problems with how you're strategically approaching using Dynamo across multiple different teams and multiple different places around the world, then this class could definitely be for you. Jostein's been in the space for a long time. He knows the ins and outs of the problem space. He knows some interesting solutions on how to solve some of these problems. And he starts to talk about the process that they use at Sweco to build an internal Dynamo community and encourage Dynamo usage to reach new heights.
Yeah, to quote John, highly recommend watching Jostein's class, any Jostein class. He's an absolute mad scientist, 100% on board with that. The stuff that he does, it always is just such a creative way that he applies technology and the way that he sort of views the problems. You'll learn a lot from those sort of sessions.
Yeah, Jostein was also the top-rated speaker at Built in Slovenia in Europe about 3 or 4 years ago as well. Yeah. Very, very fun talk.
All right, next session is a civil application where we're going to look at underground utility GIS features into civil 3D pipe networks via Dynamo. This is a really big problem for a lot of different industry applications where we've got this GIS data content, these really big, large scale pieces, much bigger than what you can really tackle in our typical Dynamo for Revit environment, and how we can leverage that data to actually drive that content forward into our design documentation in Civil 3D. So really another great sort of skill set. Even if you're not a civil user, you'll be able to sort of understand a lot of what you can do with that tool set by coming to this particular session.
Cool. So, I love Dynamo. We all love Dynamo, but sometimes you can't use Dynamo for absolutely everything, even though Dynamo might be a key part of your workflow. So this particular talk is talking about how to leverage the right kind of technology at the right time and the right place to get the most bang for your buck. So in essence, if we're talking about data, we're talking about big data in particular, or raw data as it's referred to here, can potentially be a little bit messy. And sometimes the processing of that can happen in Dynamo in a very efficient and effective way. And sometimes it's easier to do it in other places before you bring it into Dynamo. So this particular class is talking about how to deal with data generically and how to have strategies to organize, evaluate, and illustrate and understand that data. So if you're into big data, if you're starting to play with big data, there's definitely strategies on how to use it effectively and efficiently. And this class should start to talk to some of those.
Yeah. Another interesting aspect of this class is you're going to sort of divulge into their decision-making process between, is it the right time to use Revit, or do we want to be in Format where it's a little bit more conceptual in nature? So really looking forward to that particular aspect when I go back and watch the recording on this one. Our next session is 10 years of Dynamo and Revit classes from one speaker in 60 minutes. Volume 3. Marcello is presenting yet again, where he's going to take his consistently top-rated content and put it back in front of us to allow us to sort of sit back, enjoy some of that content that we've presented all the way back in 2012, what was his first time one, I believe was 2010 or 2011. I always get it confused. But in any case, he's been doing it for a long time and is an amazing presenter, as always comes up with some great stuff to sort of sit back and watch. So definitely worth checking this one out.
Yeah, if you're unfamiliar with who Marcello is, he has been consistently the top-rated AU speaker for years and years running now. So if you haven't seen his class, 100%, if you're going to watch 1 or 2 classes, this should definitely be on your list because you'll learn a whole bunch of really cool things. If you've seen this class before, then this is more of a revision to previous content, and you might want to spend your time in other places. Awesome. So if we're talking about, again, the thematic of like right time, right place, Dynamo does a lot of really awesome things. And in some ways, Dynamo is a little bit of a gateway drug into other things as well. And so if you come to this class, you can talk about how Dynamo can help you transition into other places, the concepts, the theories, the strategies around how to use Dynamo and understand data flow and manipulation can then be leveraged later on in other places. So if you come and take beyond Dynamo, the powerful automation potential of Forge and the Revit API, you can start to leverage the knowledge that you might have gained in Dynamo and move it into other places as well. As the ecosystem of Autodesk grows through the Forge application, you'll be able to look to use Forge to leverage the kind of logic that you build in Dynamo today in more and more places with more and more power.
Yeah, Forge is definitely sort of that next thing, so to your point, I got started with Dynamo and now I'm really looking forward to starting to crack open the nut that it is Forge. So I think this is going to be one of those ones that I'm going to refer back to a lot in the coming years. Next session is HVAC system selection with generative design from Fruin. Sean's great mind in terms of how he approaches HVAC sort of system design and content in Revit. And the content that I've seen him put together through some of the different Dynamo packages and stuff like that is also indicating that you're really talking to the right person when it comes to sort of automating what we can through HVAC at scale. So he's going to go over some of the sort of how to work with Revit's geometry engine, which can be really difficult for HVAC kind of content, as well as defining those sort of parametric rules and system content as well. So another great one, specifically going to be great for those MEP engineers out there. Question from, oh, the chat moved on me. Sorry about that. What was the implementation of Dynamo session? Jason, I'm not sure which one you're referring to. We can try and go back through once we get a little bit further through, but we'll definitely be posting links as well as a PDF to all the sessions, so you can go back and grab that after the fact.
Right, Jason, I think you're referring to the Sweco one, but we can definitely loop back. This is the final slide out of our series actually, and then we can have just a general Q&A and start talking about this kind of stuff. So the last one we wanted to refer to here is again in Revit, and this is Smarter MEP Collaboration and MEP Design Verifications by Dynamo. So this is, again, within the thematic of understanding the right time, the right place, and how to deal with things. This is about talking about how to use Dynamo in the MEP world to then validate your designs against criteria. So this is about to learn how to check measurements between objects, to learn how to validate this against specific rules and standards, to learn how to generate and build geometry inside of the Revit space using Dynamo, and a whole bunch of other really cool things. So this is about, I think 16 different sessions that were presented today. That's not everything and exhaustive of what is out there in Dynamo inside of the AU site right now. This is just a sort of curated set of what we wanted to sort of bubble up to the higher, broader attention of the Dynamo ecosystem right now. There's still a bunch of really other cool things out there, so I would encourage you to go and check out the AU catalog beyond this. But we have finished sort of the slide deck series to date, and we just wanted to open it up to have more of a conversation, because today was really about talking and really about understanding what you're excited about, understanding about what you want to see in the future potentially as well, maybe encouraging people. I know John's in the chat here. John speaks at AU a lot as well, encouraging other people to put their hand up and start to present at conferences like AU. I've done it in the past as well. Jacob's done it. John's done it. Other people in the chat have done it as well. And it is a really rewarding experience, because honestly, the best way ever to learn Dynamo is to try and teach it to somebody else. So maybe that's with your own colleagues within your own offices. Maybe this is with your friends or within the Dynamo community that you exist within, or maybe helping out on the forums, but also presenting in front of a room of people, especially when the world goes back to being in front of real people as opposed to remote, is one of the most rewarding experiences you can have, and one of the most educational experiences, because when you try to teach something, any concept, Dynamo or otherwise, to other people, you really do have to understand that, and it will teach you things you didn't know beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, from my experiences speaking at AU, it's extremely rewarding. Sort of the capability to interact with people and learn by presenting, and sort of taking the time to, rather than just accomplish, think through what that process is. You get a lot out of it. So cool.
I was going to say, John, do you want to unmute yourself and maybe spend a minute or so talking about your own journey? Because I know you've written a blog post on this in the past, and it's been quite a transformative story. Put you on the spot.
I don't know.
He said yes, hold on, lol.
All right, John, we'll let you hold on. In the meantime, one thing that I will put out there, whatever one of these classes you might want to go to, make sure you take the time to register for AU in advance. You want to get that done and get signed up for these questions now, even if you just want to catch the recording later. Get signed up, because it's going to be something you're going to have to do anyways to catch those. So the sooner you get the sign up taken care of, the better off stuff's going to be.
Agreed. And so, you'll notice also that AU this year and last year is a little different to previous, and it is a different dynamic when you're in person versus remote. The intention is to very much go back and watch some of these things later, but I would encourage you to watch them live if you're within a time zone that allows that, because you do get to engage with the Q&A, but also it is a nice way to engage with other people who are watching that session and form a sort of virtual community in that space too. I mean, I have the best of intentions to go and watch a whole bunch of internal recordings to things all the time, and somehow never find the time to do it, because we're all very busy people and we all do a whole bunch of different things within our workday. So it's nice to be able to have a place to go and spend some time learning about something you're really interested in with a whole bunch of other people who are in the same kind of mind space.
Cool. All right, there's another question about the meetup for the Dynamo meetup, Seoul. It's from Thomas. I was wondering if there will be a live stream of that as well, and I don't know.
So I don't know if you saw the slide at the front end, Thomas. There's currently 2 sessions that did fill up incredibly quickly, so much so that I think, unfortunately, people who might have been asleep at the time they were released didn't even get an opportunity to go to them, which sucks, and I'm sorry for that. We are capped to 100 people per session. There's currently 2 of them. We are requesting a third, and so that session, currently the 2 sessions are on Tuesday. The 3rd session would be on Thursday if we get green lit for that. So fingers crossed on that one. We're trying our absolute best to get a 3rd session. They will be recorded either way, but they're very much a sort of an in-person event. I'll look into, like I mentioned on LinkedIn, Thomas, I'll look into seeing if we can live stream them via YouTube or some other way to, get that out into the hands of more people. Can't make any promises, unfortunately. We're a little bit limited to the system that we have in place, but I'll do my absolute best to try and make that happen.
John, did you manage to get your audio working? I see the mute symbol is off on your microphone.
Yeah, so I'm editing videos, so that's what I was trying to stop doing right now. Yeah, I mean, so I encourage everyone just to hang out on these kind of streams, stuff that's AU built, whatever you need to hang out on, and just share what you know. So I've presented a few times, and one thing I always tell people is your world gets a lot bigger the more generous you are. So like you meet people, like I started sharing what I was learning, and I've met all sorts of people that like in person, online, and when you go to the conferences or you're in these chats, it's really cool to see names that are familiar. Like Thomas is on the chat right now, and like Thomas is someone that I've interacted with for years now, and I don't think I've ever met him in person actually. So Saul is one that I met a long time ago in person after having known him digitally, and Jacob, and it's just really cool. I think just sharing what you know is a great place to be, and go for it whenever you have a chance to present. And I mentioned it in the chat too. It's really nice when these are in person, after your class, you kind of get off the stage and the next person setting up. Those questions that happen after classes are like the best parts of AU or any conference, because people come up with an idea in mind and they're excited. So I encourage you, even in virtual conferences, to be in the chat typing a lot. It's not the same, but it gets us pretty close to where we can interact, and it's just really fun. I really like the Dynamo community, and I'm even where I'm at today because of it, I think. So
yeah, I think you get out what you put in, right? And you know, even creating content for other people to consume gives you back so much, which is kind of cool.
For sure. So yeah, and thanks for putting me on the spot. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, had to do it, John.
Awesome.
John and I actually we met years ago making videos for a company called Pluralsight on Dynamo, funnily enough, which was kind of cool. So we've been in the same place at one point in life.
There you go. Awesome.
Is there anyone else in the chat who wants to maybe come off microphone and like, you know, share a thought, share a comment? Maybe you've presented, maybe you're interested in presenting, maybe it's something generic about Dynamo, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, put something in chat. We actually had to lock down the muting because we had a little problem person. So, so people just need to let us know that they want to come off mute, and then I'll send them a request.
Yeah, you can probably use the raise hand. So if you're not familiar with Zoom,
hand, that works too. Yeah.
Yeah, down at the bottom, there's a reactions button. If you click on that and there's a raised hand, it'll actually raise your image to the top of the deck so we can see who's curious about talking. But if we're quiet and nobody wants to talk, that's also cool, no pressure.
I like that idea from Sean about the idea of a Zoom room for after class discussion on Dynamo. Maybe I'll see if I can swing something.
This can be
in
done.
My schedule. Yeah.
We can make this happen. It's just a matter of what time it is and all that. We could totally do this. It would be fun if we have a group, like it sounds like, you know, if John's going to do cat videos for us, Jacob's going to do balloon animals. Saul's going to give us life wisdom, advice, and philosophy. Hey, I'm there.
Beth's going to make some balloon animals too. All right. Are those going to be real, or are those going to be the Dynamo ones?
Doesn't matter. Whatever. And it looks like Kate's saying we can go to 500 in that Zoom in our account. So.
Yeah, my bad on that. I thought we were uncapped, but 500 is still a better number than 100 to Thomas's point.
If I tuned into your meetup, Saul, and then I shared that in Zoom to 500 people.
I mean, that's essentially what we're going to look into to try and do. We need to run a test on that, but yes.
Yeah.
So if we do that via Zoom or via YouTube as a live stream, we're looking to try and make that happen. But yeah, it might be better if we have someone sort of in the background, such as yourself, Sean, to do that. So I'm gonna have to do a lot of other things.
Yeah, no, I'm there for yourself, Jacob.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Full trust. It's like that whole close your eyes and like fall backwards thing. You got us.
Okay.
All right. Well,
All right.
Go ahead, Sol.
I was gonna do what you were gonna do, so you go ahead.
All right. I was going to say, it looks like there is one more message that just came through in the chat to me around the new design aesthetics in Dynamo. Sol, do you want to talk a little bit about how we might have come up with the new sort of color scheme there?
Yeah, for sure. So, yep. How about I maybe share my screen and I open up how it looks today, and I can maybe show some visuals as opposed to just talking about it, because a picture speaks 1,000 words and all that. So if you don't mind stopping sharing, Jacob, for a hot second.
I had to find that button. That's one of the few buttons I rarely ever use in Zoom. Yeah.
Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so this is off the cuff. If I make mistakes, then please bear with me. But essentially, Dynamo is undergoing a visual refresh right now. So we're hard at work on the Dynamo teams, looking at improving and modernizing the user experience, the UI, the paradigms within which you interact with Dynamo, and a bunch of other really cool things. We can't give any dates away, but we're targeting to try and get this out sooner rather than later, which would be really cool. And we already have this in the daily builds. So if you're familiar with the daily builds inside of Dynamo, you can download Sandbox and start playing with this and exploring how these new features work. So this is in flight. This is work in progress right now. As far as Dynamo goes, there's some things are janky. There's some bugs and things. I'll show you that when I collapse the groups, because they're not really behaving appropriately yet. But essentially what you'll see is Dynamo is going through a redesign when it comes to the nodal landscape. It's also going through an improvement when it comes to the sort of annotation or the graph annotation capabilities of Dynamo. And then the whole UI really is going to get revamped as well. So if you've used 2.12 yet, you'll be familiar with this new preferences panel, which was kind of like the first piece of this puzzle, which is us consolidating a menu redesign and the preferences panel down into a sort of a single one-stop shop for you to go and sort of choose your user preferred settings. So this is, things such as how you interact with the package manager and your installed packages, which gives you notions of what's loaded or unloaded or in an error state, things like visual settings on how you want to see edges or whatever, all the basic settings that you're familiar with today and a few others, which is cool. And so the next set of works that is in flight right now is a node redesign, as well as the wire stuff. So the node redesign is using the sort of darker theme. It's got some rounded edges. There's some affordances for how Dynamo is interacting with things. So if you click off a wire, it's going to have a red input to showcase that this graph is actually not going to execute the way you think it's going to execute, because it's missing something going into this piece of the puzzle, which is kind of cool. And it's going to click on blue if you're in automatic mode, automatically to showcase the change of state. So this is now an honored node with all of its ports honored, which is awesome. So we also have a variance in the context menu. So we found that a lot of newer users in particular were, it wasn't as discoverable as it could have been through a lot of research. So we now have a context menu at the lower right. For your advanced users, you can still use the right click to access this inside of the node, but it now starts to showcase a bunch of other cool things that happen. Dismissed alerts is one of those. It's not actually in the build right now. This is kind of like a placeholder, but it will be there, which means warnings that you have in your graph that you know are going to happen, you're going to be able to dismiss, which means they're going to propagate up in time to the Dynamo player and not actually show a problem when there isn't a problem, which I think is kind of cool. So as part of that, we also have the groups. So groups have been redesigned. You'll notice that we now have a title and we also have a description. Oh, if I could type properly. You'll see that we have a title and a description field for that group, and we have the ability to collect those groups. This is the kind of stuff I said is a work in progress and not working so well. So essentially the wires should be going into the correct ports, but a group now behaves like a giant node. So in essence, you can hide away a bunch of different logic if you don't want end users to necessarily mess with that or have to even really think about it. So if you're trying to clean up your graph space to have users be less overwhelmed when they come in to use your graph or not mess with things they're not supposed to touch, then this is going to be one way to do that. So it's going to auto-generate ports on the input of the graph of the group and auto-generate ports on the output and start to tell you how many nodes are going to exist within the inside of that as well. Still, like I said, work in progress, a little bit whipped, a little bit broken as it stands right now. We also have some other wire actions going on, which are kind of fun. So if I move this across and I hover over a wire, you'll notice we now get a few different wire actions. So one of those is the data that's flowing through the wires. So upon hover, it's going to tell you what node this is coming from, what node this is going to, and the data that's flowing through this, in my case, nulls, because I broke something. And then you also get the ability to say, actually, I want to inspect this data a little deeper. So I'm going to go and place a watch node. And it's automatically going to go and place a watch node there inside of your space. And obviously, if you undo, that's going to undo that watch node. Oops, I've lagged out, I think. Okay, no, we're still buggy there. We haven't fixed that one yet. So there's some behaviors you'll see. We also have the ability to now pin wires. So this is the ability to then go and say, I want to have my graph look a particular way. So we're going to have these pins. You might be familiar with this if you come from sort of a different visual programming language, or you might have played with Archilab's relay node that is existing here as well. And this is going to play nice with the ability to do orientation of things as well. So if we want to do a top, we can angle those things to come through from the top as well. So that gives you the ability to play with some information on wires. You also get this new output port, which is the ability to hide the wires. So we haven't hidden this yet, that's a bug, but there is now the ability to have these kind of like relays inside of Dynamo, which means when you select either the group or the node, you'll see a transparented out wire. But in essence, you can create wireless nodes inside of Dynamo in this kind of way. And the breadcrumbs to that is it still has the little icon at the end of the port as well. So you'll notice that port is sort of engaged, so to speak, and it's also engaged with the blue point at the far end. And so then you can right click on this wire and you can choose to show the wire. There's a wire action. You can choose to select connected and everything from it. You also get the ability to break the connections from a port location, which is obviously going to kill my graph, or break the connections from on the wire space as well. So that's just a quick sneak peek at some of the things that are coming through in Flat right now. There is more. So the package manager is going to be improved. The UI experience for that is going to be affordances for renamed nodes. I think this was John's most requested thing in the world for a long time, was that he wasn't a fan of existing renamed node. So now you get the ability to do this through a simple little blue dot that is less obtrusive on the eyes, and it tells you what it's renamed from as well. So there's a lot more than I've gone over right now. It's going to be a huge release for 2.13 containing a bunch of really cool things. But if you're curious, I would encourage you to go and play with this inside of the daily builds right now. And more things are going to keep dropping over the course of the next sort of 5 to 7 weeks as we round out this release.
Yeah, that was an awesome little sort of sneak peek at stuff to come. Thank you, Sol. If anybody does want to play around with it, as noted, go to dynamobuilds.com. I did put that link somewhere up there in the chat, so you can go ahead and grab that link, pop over there, grab one of the later 2.13 daily builds, and check out stuff to come. All right.
Yeah. So this session was, slightly different to our previous sessions where it was more conversational and we're kind of just like, telling you some things as opposed to specifically playing inside of the Dynamo realm, apart from my little sneak peek. But when we're going to move back into the same sort of original sort of cadence of these series moving forwards. So on October the 21st, there's going to be a delay, and that delay is because of AU, and everybody's, at least at Autodesk, is very busy around that time frame. So we'll be doing sneaks on a Dynamo plane. I'll give 2 seconds for anyone who doesn't get that reference to jump in, but essentially Python inside of Dynamo is going to be the focus of our next conversation. And then the difference between Dynamo things is going to be focused on custom nodes with the DYF file format. And my not so good attempt at a pun on that one coming through on November the 4th, before we move into how to make Dynamo sing. So essentially on November the 18th, we're going to talk about how to sort of optimize Dynamo from your end, from sort of the end user perspective, and also give you some insight into how Dynamo can be optimized from our side. So the kind of work that we do when we make performance increases for you and optimizations around stability and so on, the kind of things that we have to explore and consider and think about, also reflect in the kind of choices that you can make inside of the Dynamo UI to make your experience faster should you need it.
All right, thank you. And I love, John's anecdotes in there. Dreams do come true. You made his dreams come true. That was a nice one. We're going to wrap up today's session. Don't leave yet. We have a survey that we want to get your feedback on that helps us shape the program, the community conversations as we move forward. It's really important for us to get that. But if you're looking for other ways to connect and engage in the Autodesk community, we have a few resources for you. You can explore the many ways to connect in the Autodesk community, including in the global network of user groups in the Autodesk Group Network, our industry-focused communities helping colleagues solve business challenges together, the Autodesk forums, of course, and staying connected with us on Twitter. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Saul, Jacob, John, Thomas, all the regulars, all the questions, all the feedback. We do welcome your feedback, so it's really important that you do take time to answer that and continue to stay connected in the Autodesk community. And we hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Really appreciate your time today. I hope you sign up to some awesome AU sessions, and I hope you do download the daily builds and have a play as well. Should you have any issues, feel free to reach out to Jacob or myself on the forums. As was mentioned in the chat, Windows has a defense mechanism against unknown or DLLs, so you will have to use 7-zip to download or sort of unzip the Dynamo Sandbox zip file, or you right click on it and you go down to properties and click unblock. There's two different options to do that. So once you do that, you should be able to get them working completely fine on your machines.
And hopefully we can do something with Zoom. We orchestrate and announce that to people to have a place that they can get and talk, get more life anecdotes from John, as well as Dynamo tips and ideas.
All the good stuff.
Yes.
Looking forward to it. All right. Thanks, everybody. It's been a blast.
See you around. Have a good one.